Please read the disclaimer. XRP holders, it's happening today, and Trump is telling us that this is a non negotiable thing. Plus, is the straits going to open or not? There might be a problem with that. And we have a Clarity Act timeline that could tell us potentially when the crypto market is going to break out. Hello, beautiful people. Shalom, money makers. Happy Saturday where you are around the world. Currently, XRP is sitting at $1.34, down minus 0.68%. The whole world is sitting and waiting to see what is going to happen out of the discussions that are happening. The Iran-US talks are going to begin in a few hours. Iran media reported negotiation hosted by Pakistan are now likely to start later today after earlier delays. Delegations were first held in separate meetings with Pakistan's PM before formal negotiations begin. And President Trump was asked this morning what he thinks on potentially what is going to happen. Let's take a listen. It's the quality of the sound is a little bit wonky here because it's outside, but I think it's important to listen what Trump said, and then come back to some of the things that I have told you over the past few days.
What did you tell J.D. Vance before he left, sir?
Well, I wish him luck. He's got a big thing. We'll find out what's going on. They're militarily defeated, and now we're going to open up the Gulf with or without them. But that'll be open. We're going to be, or the strait as they call it, and I think it's going to go pretty quickly. And if it doesn't, we'll be able to finish it off one way or the other. It's going well. The Navy's gone, the Air Force is gone, all anti-aircraft is gone, the leaders are gone, the whole place is gone. So we'll see how it turns out. So it's JD and Steve and Jared. They have a good team, and they meet tomorrow. We'll see how it all works out.
What would a good deal look like for you?
No nuclear weapon, number one. You know, I think it's already been regime change, but we never had that as a criteria. No nuclear weapon. That's 99% of it.
Strait of Hormuz as well?
Yeah, but that'll open up automatically. The answer is yes, but the strait will open up. If we just left, the strait's going to, otherwise they make no money. So the strait's going to open, but what we have is no nuclear weapon, but we'll open the strait anyway. Don't forget, we don't use the strait. Other countries use the strait. So we do have other countries coming up, and they'll help out, but we don't use it. It won't be easy. It won't be, I would say this, we will have that open fairly soon.
What's your backup plan?
Excuse?
What's your backup plan if there's no field opens?
You don't need a backup plan.
So basically, President Trump is telling us that that is the number one thing. It's non-negotiable. 99% of it is the no nuclear weapon. I don't know if that's going to be ironed out today. And it's interesting because he says the Strait of Hormuz, that's been the whole thing. That's been the whole reason why they haven't gone too aggressively, because they know that that's going to mess up oil prices around the world. But he even says we don't use it, right? The U.S. doesn't use the Strait. It's other countries that use it. It's Russia, it's China, and other countries, India, that use this. Of course, Saudi Arabia also is bringing out oil from there, but most of the U.S. oil doesn't come from these places. So the fact is that, yes, oil prices are going up, but that's just because of the prices on the market. The U.S. is not going to see an oil shortage anytime soon. But interesting what's happening here. The reason why, according to reports, that we're not seeing the strait open, even though they promised part of the ceasefire was that they would open it up, is that now it's being reported that they cannot find the mines that they planted in the strait. The New York Times reported this to U.S. officials. Iran mined the waterway carelessly last month, never properly recording where every mine was placed, and some have since drifted from their original positions. Iran does not have the capability to remove them quickly, neither does the U.S. military. 20% of the oil supply moves through the strait every day. And Iran did not just block it. Now they F themselves as well, because that's their lifeline, right? When the U.S. put sanctions on Iran, or not just the U.S., but the rest of the world, they weren't allowed to do business, right? But they would do business with China, with Iran. They would, with Russia. They would use ships that didn't have the Iranian flag, or they would have the Iranian flag, but then they would change the flags and they would do all kinds of backwater things. And that's how they kept their country afloat for the past 10 years. But they're in dire economic situation before this war started. Now their infrastructure has been dismantled, their air force, their navy, they're in the deep hole right now. So it will be very interesting to see what happens here, because financially they're going to be in ruins, right? And their thing right now is to get all these sanctions lifted from them. And to do that, they're going to have to say yes to a lot of things, a lot of painful things for them. I don't think that that's going to happen very fast. I think this is probably going to go prolong for another period of time. Maybe I'm wrong about this. My interest is that it finishes, right? But I don't know. I have a feeling that this is not going to happen. These peace talks are not going to go well, and we're going to continue to see this. This is usually how it plays out. The first ceasefire is just it doesn't play out. The two sides kind of try to figure out what the other side wants, and then they go back to fighting, come back maybe after a month or so, and then they try it again, according to who is the most exhausted from the situation. And we'll see what happens with this. But again, right now the crypto market is just sitting and waiting, and not a lot of action is happening. XRP is currently still over the trend line, which is good. You can see there were a few hours here that XRP touched the trend line, but it was able to bounce off of that. Right now, XRP is sitting at $1.34. So, basically where it has been for the past few weeks. Basically, since March 26th, we've been in this zone. We had that one breakout, but outside of that, even before, we were kind of at 138, 140, right? And bouncing up and down in that zone. Bitcoin is at 72,000. So also basically level that it was at March 18th. So actually Bitcoin and Ethereum also have gotten back to levels that it was in March 18th. XRP is actually undervalued right now at 134, right? It should be, if it would mimic the same as Ethereum and Bitcoin, it should be around 150. So we could potentially see XRP give a bigger of a movement if there is some good news coming out from today. And this will be interesting. Solana also lower levels. Interestingly, by the way, if you notice, the Nasdaq and the S&P 500 basically erased all the losses that it had since the beginning of the conflict. So that's crazy, right? Again, we have another situation where the stock market sells off on bad news, quote unquote bad news, but then comes all the way back. Same thing happened last year in here, right? Of course, February, all the way down, all the way up, right? That was a little bit more extreme with the tariffs. And this was a lot shorter of a time frame. This was a few months, but still, same thing kind of happened. Also back here, there was some bad news. Remember October, right? That sell-off, and then we had a bounce back. So very, very interesting. Tells us that if you just wait a little bit and you play the course and you don't listen to all the shenanigans and all the news, 99% of the time, this is what happens. Of course, sometimes you have, a prolonged period of time, like from March of 2022 all the way to December of 2022, which is almost a year, where the Nasdaq here dropped. I think it was about 20%, 35% in that period of time. But it did also recover off of that. So again, long-term investors are usually the most successful investors. Look at Warren Buffett. Look at other people. I look at people in my life, and I've seen how they long-term invest and how that's been successful for them. Of course, there's always going to be short-term success stories. I'll share with you one in just a second. But before that, I just want to remind you that this video is for educational purposes, for entertainment purposes only, not financial advice. Always do your own due diligence before you decide to invest, okay? Also, remember that I will never contact you on social media asking you to sign up to anything or to send me any money. Those are scammers. Those are imposters. Please be very careful out there. So the big mover that we saw this yesterday as well is Rave. I told you I had a little position on it. It grew to a very big position. And so there's always opportunities. There's always plays in this market, even when the market looks that nothing is moving and nothing is happening. There's always opportunity. And, recently there hasn't been lots of opportunities, but here Rave was an opportunity. A few weeks ago, Algorand was moving, and then it got some bad news recently. So it sold off. Siren had been moving big, but these are very, very volatile assets, right? So again, there's potential here of amazing run-ups, but there's also potential of an asset like this, selling off significantly after going parabolic. So as always, we have to take, be careful and take considerations. But there's always opportunities in the market. Okay, right now the top cryptos are not really moving, but there can be a shift, there can be a change very, very fast. And that's why it's important to be subscribed to the channel, to ring the bell, to always get the updates, always get the news, so you know what's happening. You know of the potential of XYZ. Because what's probably going to happen if the market does move, and we'll get to the Clarity Act in just a second, and the potential of that movement is that the people on the sidelines, by the time they get back in and they feel the FOMO, most of the movement is already gone. But if you know what's happening in the market and you know what's going on, you can be there before. You can be there right before. Of course, it's always hard to get the exact bottom, right? There's going to be people always on Twitter and social media that tell, well, I called the exact top. I called the exact bottom, right? They probably called like 5 or 6 different exact tops, and then they were right about one of them, and then they pat themselves on the back. You don't know when it's going to happen, but if you can know kind of where the lower areas are, and if you accumulate in that area, usually, right, not every single time, you are very successful in the long term. Before we get to the Clarity Act, U.S. Treasury Secretary Bessent and Federal Reserve Chairman Powell held an urgent meeting with bank CEOs to warn about cybersecurity risks linked to Anthropic's new Mythos model, according to Reuters. So they're not just worried about stablecoins. Now they're also worried about what could potentially happen here from the Anthropic and everything that's happening there. I have a very interesting video about AI and crypto. I think I'll post it tonight. Like I'll make a video about it tonight. There's 2 things that I want to talk about tonight. So again, make sure to subscribe to the channel and ring the bell so you don't miss that video, because it's very interesting. But let's talk a little bit about Clarity Act. So we talked about yesterday about Brian Armstrong, about Coinbase, and it looks like high probability that Clarity Act is going to move forward. People are talking about how Clarity could pass in the next couple of weeks. Vincent says here his view isn't that it hasn't been priced in yet, maybe just partially. So it wouldn't be surprised the official announcement hit price of major assets like XRP, Bitcoin, and Ethereum to jump 10+%. Now, again, if we jump 10+% in a very short period of time, that wouldn't really bring us that high. Like it would bring us to 145, 147, somewhere in that area. Would you be happy if that, if that was a one-day movement? You say, okay, if it's a one-day movement, then potentially we could get back here to maybe the levels that we were in the beginning of January, when we were at 236 before Coinbase pulled out its support on the Clarity Act. What would give your confidence back if the crypto markets, moved in, let's say, a 1-week period, a 2-week period? How much would you need to say, okay, the crypto market is back? Let me know in the comment section. And it's not just a bull trap. Let me know in the comment section. What do you think? But the timeline is like this. Right now, we're at April 10th, right? April 11th. Senate Banking Committee markup is targeted for the second half of April 2026 after the Senate returns from a recess on April 13th. Some senators, for example, Bill Haggerty, have expressed optimism that it could move out of committee and to the full Senate floor by the end of April. Critical deadline industry and senators, including Bernie Moreno, warned that the bill must reach the Senate floor by Memorial Day recess late May, or it risks just going away for the year, potentially delaying comprehensive crypto legislations until after 2026 midterms or later. According to the Polymarket odds, as of April 9th to 10th, prediction markets give a roughly 61% chance of the bill to pass into law in 2026. It's not that high, up 11% from the previous day, which is good. Some industry voices call passage practically inevitable due to the alignment between traditional finance and crypto sectors. So there's no real reason right now, if Coinbase is in agreement and the senators are in agreement and the banks are in agreement and everybody's in agreement, that doesn't pass. Unless there's some stupid wording, right, that they don't agree on, and it's going to delay things even more, then we don't know, what could potentially move that. But it will be very interesting to see what can happen here in the next coming days with that act. I'm thinking about, I didn't know if I should show you that position or not show you a position on that Rave DAO trade that I did, because it was a very risky trade, but I only put in a very small amount. It is up a significant amount. And I did do it with our partner, BTCC. So if you're interested, link is in the description down below, and you can sign up with BTCC. But it is, I still have it open. It's a pretty big, it's become a very big position. I don't know if it will show. I don't want to, I don't have a trading group or anything like that. So whenever I have a very good trade, I'm like, I don't know if I should show this, because I'm not trying to sell you a trading group or sell you on my excellent skills. I saw momentum and I opened a position when it was up, already up big. It was up, uh, it was around 50 cents right there. And now it's at $2. So it did a very big movement in a very short period of time. How do I do this? Right? Technical difficulty time. Yeah, so it's just a wild trade. You see, I open it up at 56 and it's at 212. And I put only a small amount of money there. It's up almost 14,000%. Crazy, right? So this just reminds us that there's always possibilities. And it was a very large leverage, but it was a small amount. I was saying to myself, okay, this is, basically either it makes big or it's the money's gone, right? Because it was already moving. It already moved up actually a significant amount, you can see in a very short period of time. So if you are interested, again, that was with BTCC. You can see it's already up. It was about 73% on the day. It was moving. I saw volume enter. I was like, okay, let's see what happens here. And it came out good. Again, there's times that you're going to have good trades and there's times that you're going to lose everything. But what's important is size of trades. It's about allocation of risk, and that's very, very important. So again, link is in the description down below if you're interested. It is an affiliate link, so I will get a commission if you use my link. Again, I don't have a trading group or something like that. I know other YouTubers do that, and they try to sell you on their skills or lack of skills. But I don't do that, and so that's not what this flex, right? I didn't want to flex on you, just to show you the potential of the crypto market. There's still a lot of potential, going forward. You just have to have your ear on the ground. I had my ear on the ground as part of what I do every day, and this is one of my most successful trades, basically since June of 2025. Since then, I haven't had any trade even come close to this. So does this mean that we're potentially going to get some nice movements here? Is this just a one-off? We'll see. We'll see. I'm excited for some nice movement in the market. I'm excited for some big numbers. Will they come? We'll have to see. Okay. Don't forget to smash the like button. Check out the links in the description down below. Drop your comments to tell me your opinions as well. That's appreciated as well. Thank you for watching. I hope to see you next time. And like I always say, let's make a lot of money.